Good evening, Robert Scribbler here, and as they say in the old references of Monty Python, now for something completely different. Now, this evening, it's, I guess, kind of a Freaky Friday, and I am going to try my hand at something that I have not done yet. I am going to depart from my typical writings on the issue of climate change and share with you a bit of fiction that I am writing as a kind of parody to the present world, which both includes fantasy, a modern kind of fantasy setting with fantasy characters, but one that parodies the present world and provides social commentary to the present world. And the name of this particular writing is called Helkey. And the first chapter that I'm going to read to you is Chapter 1, The Memory Draught. Now, before I go into this, I know this might seem a little weird to you guys because usually I am doing video blogs on the issue of climate change. And so before I go into this fictional reading for you, I'd just like to share with you a little bit of my background. I know that sometimes people have asked about my background, and usually I don't really talk about myself too much, but I think that in order to preempt this bit of fantasy, modern fantasy writing that I'm going to share with you, I need also to share with you some of my history as a person. Now, I went to, really quick, I went to Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, and graduated with a degree in English and Social Science, which included a minor in creative writing. During that time, I was a member of the U.S. Army National Guard, the Florida Guard, and while I was there, we responded to a number of hurricanes, to include Hurricane Opal, which devastated the Florida Panhandle at the time. After graduating, I worked very briefly as a credit card fraud prevention analyst, and then moved on to work as a police officer for the federal government, a Department of Defense police officer for the U.S. Navy. Now, this was also while I was serving in the U.S. Army National Guard, first as an infantryman, then as a forward observer for the artillery, and finally as a U.S. military intelligence analyst. After leaving the police force for DoD in 2001, I went on to become a coordinating editor for the publishing company Jane's Information Group. Now, Jane's Information Group, if you're not familiar with Tom Clancy novels, is a publisher of defense and government related material. Its flagship publication was Jane's Fighting Ships. My job at Jane's was to serve as coordinating editor for what they called emerging threats. And so I edited books like the Chem Bio Handbook, which was a first responder guide to chemical and biological incidents like the anthrax letters that occurred in the early 2000s. I edited a book called Jane's World Insurgency and Terrorism. I helped to write what was then a blog called Chem BioWeb, which tracked chemical and biological related incident news. And I worked with experts like Dr. Ken Allebeck and experts over at Fort Detrick in Maryland on the issue of chem bio response. Now, emerging threats not only included terrorism and school violence and chemical, biological types of threats, but it also included other issues that, while I was at Jane's, we didn't necessarily publish material on, but that I received a lot of concern about at my desk as an editor. And one of those issues was climate change. And it was at that point that I began to just start compiling research and lists of experts on the issue of climate change for later writing. Now, leaving the Jane's Information Group, I then worked very briefly at an agency which I did not enjoy, and I won't say much more about it. I worked for the American Chemistry Council for 1 year. I didn't enjoy it. I decided to leave in order to pursue fiction writing. Now, I did this from 2005 until 2007, publishing the two Luthiel Song series books, Dreams of the Ringed Veil and The War of Mists. And I self-published, and I went on school visits and on book tours, and these fantasy novels incorporated a themes to include compassion, love of the environment, and severe environmental disaster that was ongoing in this fantasy world, which I called the world of OSHA. Now, during this whole time, I was continuing to, I know it sounds like a lot of stuff, I was continuing to keep track of climate change as just a matter of personal interest and to keep research on the issue of climate change. And by the time I completed my book tours in 2012, I decided to produce a very serious effort writing independently on the issue of climate change as an emerging threat. And based on my earlier expertise that I gleaned both as a military intelligence analyst and as a coordinating editor working with various experts at Janes, and to look at climate change from the standpoint of an emerging threat. And so from 2012 to the end of 2018, I wrote a blog that was pretty much 100% focused on climate change as an emerging threat, and which recently I have been transitioning to looking at various responses to climate change, right? Okay. Now, so I didn't ever completely give up on writing, and I've had a number of writing projects going on in the background. And one of these has been a writing project that I am going to produce for fun and enjoyment for you and for me as a webbook. And the first chapter of this book is my introduction to the world of this character that I very much enjoy, called Myra Halki. She is plucky, she is a bit of a rebel, a bit of a rapscallion, but most of all, she's involved in a very intricate plot to steal something from a very dangerous character. And I'm not going to reveal any more. I'm not, because part of the fun of this story is there are a lot of big reveals and a lot of big conceits and in my opinion, a pretty intricate mystery embedded in the story. So I'm going to share this with you. I hope that you do not take offense to the fact that I am just breaking away for a moment from my typical talks on climate change. I will let you know that the themes of climate change in the modern world are embedded in this story, though they don't really come up in this first chapter. So without further ado, please let me share with you Chapter 1, Helkey, the Memory Draught. Having parts of your memory selectively erased is not fun. Not fun at all. I'm sitting here in fracking Starbucks watching the damned almond milk in my coffee swirl into a dizzying tempest. But no matter how hard I try, I can't for the life of me remember what I was thinking about a minute ago. I'm sure it was important. Otherwise, both my parents wouldn't be sitting here at this table with me, concern settling in over their faces. Worse, there are nagging lost patches, missing spaces in my recollection of weeks, months, even years gone by. It's as if my recall has been hit with buckshot and big pieces of my past are now all blown to smithereens. I remember taking my AP English finals a few weeks ago for sure. Whatever had wiped my memory hadn't spared me that ordeal. All the pretentious questions and annoying rote bits that I had to creatively rephrase as if 100 million students across the world hadn't done the same thing a bazillion times over. But I can't at all remember the drive to school or even whether I took the bus that day. It goes on, My 15th birthday party 2 years ago is perfectly clear, complete with a spectacular surprise fireworks launched over the beach by Dad as my mischievously grinning fellow gamer girl friends ran a candle-studded D20 cake out to me. But the walk I took later that night with Mom is mostly blanked out. All I remember is the start and end of another of her seaside chats, but none of the meat of what passed between us. I feel robbed and alone. Alone, even though both my parents are sitting directly across from me, eyeing me over their own broad and steaming mugs. Their scrutiny makes me feel paralyzed, helpless, and compared to them, ignorant. It's fracking embarrassing, as if I'm under special home care medical observation, and I don't even know why. A few rays cast off by the setting sun stream through the rain-spattered Starbucks window. They shoot out through a break in the clouds and warm my left arm, which immediately begins to itch. I shift the arm away from the light, ignoring the impulse to scratch. I know why it itches. There's a mostly invisible magical tattoo etched into my flesh, one that tingles irritably in sunlight or flickers with dark sparks by the light of the moon. An arching and swooping channel for the energy of stored curses, all linked to one powerful central curse. But I can't recall what that power is to be used for, or where it comes from, or how it will manifest. It's a really important bit to remember, I'm sure, like any one of us forgetting the password to our smartphone at the exact time we need to call 911. I patted my head, gently probing for damage, wondering why it aches so badly as I scan the room. Everyone's just going about their business, taking no notice of myself or my two odd bird parents sitting across the table from me. What the hell were we just talking about anyway? I asked my dad. He's a thin, wiry guy named Robert Morey, about 5'11", dark hair all spiky and disheveled. His perpetual ironic grin that kind of says, I know Murphy's a bastard, but yeah, shit gonna happen, so you might as well just grin about it and deal, painting his face. He turns to my mom, Beatrice Luciel, with eyebrows raised. Her white skin, mithril hair, pale outfit, silver scabbarded rapier, and light gray boots contrast with his navy jeans t-shirt and black leather jacket, where he's got the whole cool, edgy writer dude who looks like he owns a motorcycle and listens to heavy metal thing going on. She has an entirely otherworldly vibe, like her diminutive 5'4" frame was instantly teleported out of some different time or place. A where or when full of people that vaguely look like elves or angels or Kryptonians or Vulcans or some other idealized fictional re-rendering of us regular humans. Me? I'm Myra Halki. I share my dad's dark, spiky dew, but it is almost shoulder length now, and I recently dyed its streaks of red. I sprouted past my mother's height by age 14, and now have at least 3 inches on her. Regarding my reflection in a pane of glass, I thumb my spiked wristband. The combat boots, black leggings, shades of imperial blue flannel shirt, unbuttoned with arms rolled up, and a fiery phoenix white tee underneath, I guess combined to make me look like a tough girl. That or just another punk-ass geek. Although for some reason, I wonder if I should have just gone full-out unholy. It feels like an unholy kind of day. Looks like it worked, Morey says in his gravelly voice. Yep, Beatrice replies, somehow musically, a thin smirk gracing her waifish face. The kid is in the zone. My own face must be saying WTF in about 100 ways because she giggles at me. Myra, you have the absolute best range of expressions. I can read your mind just by looking at you. You must get it from Morey. She gently pokes me on my still aching forehead. It actually starts to feel better when she touches it, coolness soothing out from the soft point of impact. But I'm still annoyed. To this, my dad calls out one of his harsh laughs. But he pats my arm reassuringly and says, Be nice, Beatrice. You know it's one hell of a shock. Give the kid a break, okay? Are you guys going to key me in or just keep laughing at me and pretending like I'm not here? I'm really getting pissed, and the general continued sense of disorientation isn't helping. My folks are great and all, probably some of the best, and that ain't even half the story. But they sometimes really seem to enjoy jerking people's chains, even if people in this case includes their daughter. My father looks to me, his dark eyes assessing, revealing mild concern. Myra, you remember the plan, don't you? The memory drop? Beatrice uncurls her fingers to show a small vial with a purplish liquid sloshing around in it before rolling it back up into her hand, out of sight. Apparently, no one but the three of us conspirators at the corner table sees any of it. The sight of the memory drop sets off a slow-motion recognition shock in my already addled brain that takes a few seconds to run its course. If you hadn't already guessed from all the obvious weirdness going down, the memory drop reference should have clued you in that something isn't quite right, and that we ain't in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. But considering how much trouble I'm having catching up, I can understand how you might be a little confused. So let me just lay it out on the table for you. My parents are both mages. Even sensitive items like memory draughts are a part of their all-too-supernatural business, and by extension, mine. You see, I'm a mage too. That's it. My folk and me are mages. Weird mage people with weird mage names doing weird mage things. Names? You may have wondered about those. My parents and I don't share names like regular people. Well, in the mundane world we do. There, we're the Hansons. Boring. But our real names, our mage names, each have a meaning that keys to the source and manifestation of our power. In short, my name's Maury. In short, my dad's name, Maury, means to kill or to die. Pretty ominous, huh? Luciel is a really strange one. It means rain of stars. Yeah, kind of badass and poetic at the same time, which defines Mom to a T. And me? Well, my name, Helkey, should have a pretty obvious meaning. We're all mages, and we're all pretty much constantly involved in some kind of magical drama, be it simple or dastardly complex. For example, 20 minutes ago, my mom just waltzed into Starbucks armed with a deadly sharp rapier, completely unnoticed. Such a thing may seem weird and wildly illegal to you, something likely to result in arrest or at least some serious questions at the local downtown police station. But it's no big deal for mage types like her. She does it all the time. In fact, considering that various extremely nasty beings might pop up on her unawares at any given moment, it's abso-friggin-lutely necessary that she carry such an item. Besides, it's no trouble for her to hide the blade's existence from most casual onlookers. A simple ignore it curse is all she needs to distract the attention of pretty much every mundane away from the lethal 36-inch length of sharpened enchanted metal dangling from her belt. And that Beatrice is a real master curse crafter, so don't get her on her bad side, Clue. But a magical contraband memory draught is something on a whole nother level. A sensitive item like that might draw real attention if any other weirdos like us, mages, happen to be lurking around. They might start asking questions, and that's best avoided because those things are dangerous and powerful. Possibly personality altering. Even the best channel ones can be unreliable. They are supposed to be temporary, but the effects can last for any period from hours to years. And parents administering such potent potables to teenage kids like little old me might be seen as abusive by an outsider. And besides, even if I'm not yet cluing in, we obviously do have a plan. A very secret one if I've just been given a memory draught. Chase down with Starbucks coffee. If Mom and Dad had given me one of those big bada boom to the old brain things, it would be for one heck of a good reason, which probably means that what I knew before I took the drug was self-endangering. My shoulders slump and I settle deeper into my chair as realization begins to spark in my addled brain. I'm feeling kind of sick and unable to force myself to drink the rest of the strong-smelling coffee before me. I also feel like a bomb just went off nearby, even though the shop is full of lively, happy, and amicably chatting, if somewhat foreign people, and not strewn with prone bodies and shattered glass and a tinnitus-ringing aftermath. My stomach does a loop-de-loop, like those big upside-down curls of the Loch Ness Monster roller coaster at Busch Gardens. The plan! Holy shit, I say, perhaps too loudly due to my sudden shock-inducing recollection. We are going to break into hell. Maury cracks his best raven-jawed smile, and Beatrice nods solemnly. That, my girl, is indeed the plan, he replies. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 1 of Helkey. I will be publishing this in a webbook format on the blog bloodofosha.com. I'm going to go ahead and leave that link for you if you want to read the text. I hope you have enjoyed this Friday dalliance away from our typical programming. But I will also note that approximately once a week, I will be adding further installments. Thank you for joining me, and I will be chatting with you again soon.